Cassie here with lipstick and cowboy boots at the Big Bang Barrel Race in Bowden, Alberta. Standing next to me, the man, the myth, the legend, the foodie. You know what? I always hear about Ted talking about all the great places he's going to go and eat, and he's like, I wonder what Brett would have if he were in this town.
Right. It's funny how that's my reputation in the game, you know. I think I announce okay, but it's all about where is Brett going to eat. And in saying that, what a great selection of food vendors we have here at the Big Bang. I've about got to everyone. The only thing that's still on my list is the mini donut sundae. So that is, I'm waiting for Sunday. If I'm waiting for Sunday for the Sunday, if I earn it, then, maybe I'll go get it. But it's been wonderful.
I'm going to join you over there for the mini donuts. Brett has been a school teacher for over 13 years, and when he's not found in the classroom, you would find Brett across this great nation as a Western sports broadcaster and announcer. He is currently going to school to taking his Master of Counseling Psychology degree. So today we thought that it would be a great time to have a chat about mental health and its importance in competition. So Brett, I'd like to know what made you want to get into a little more of the mental health side of things.
Well, a great question. I think there's probably a lot of parts to that story, and of course I like to talk, so maybe I'll try and keep it as short as I can. But really, I think when it comes to the idea of the counseling or clinical psychology piece, which I've been working towards and working through, it was really just my foundational belief and a core value of mine, just the ability to help other people and to give back. And when I take a minute to think kind of where that came from, that was really how I grew up. Both of my parents were really benevolent and great community supporters, and it was always important in our home to try and help other people. And with that, I was always a guy that had big feelings and, was just kind of naturally empathetic to things. So I always just enjoyed trying to help other people. That's what led me to becoming a school teacher. And, I've since, I guess, retired. I don't know, I'm not 40 yet, so I don't know if I can say I retired from anything, but when I retired from teaching school a couple years ago to pursue my master's in counseling psychology, it was really just an extension of that. As a teacher, I always found myself kind of working with a more diverse group of learners and really trying to help them more on that social emotional side. I'd often sneak away from the curriculum and maybe get in a little trouble. But, I just really wanted to make sure that kids were happy and healthy, and that was important to me. So, and really, as I worked through the school system, and when this career, the last 8 or 9 years, kind of took over, I wasn't able to be in the school as much as I wanted. So it was really a way for me to continue to help and do things that I really love, to help people in a different area, give me a little more flexibility with my schedule, but something that was important. So when I started, look, how can I still help people? That was a way that I could do that. And then there's the other side of the story where, 2018-19, which was probably the height of my career, I was personally struggling, I was just kind of burnt out. I was full of anxiety and depression and those things. The road kind of got to me, and I thought, okay, I needed to get some help for myself. And then in turn, I was kind of inspired, hey, how can I bring kind of my expertise now and help other people? So that's kind of where I find myself today.
I love that you want to help people as much as you do, because I think that that's so important. And if any one of you have ever had a chance to converse with Brett, you know that he always makes a person feel seen, heard, and important. And as humans, I think that's very important. I'm sure that you would agree with that as well. I'd like to know your thoughts on how mental health and performance in the arena kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for saying what you said previous, because as the accolades are great and winning an ounce for the years and getting to go to events like this one in the CF4 and the Calgary Stampede, but right now in my life, what you just said is, for me, the greatest compliment that I can hear. So thank you, because I think it is important that we're seen and we're felt and we're heard and all those things. So thank you for saying that. Really, and then I guess to the second part of that question, the idea of the mental health side and competing, that is a lot of what I do. And in the past few months, I have worked with and continue to work with a lot of athletes, and really also on that mental skill side, lots of Western sports athletes who have come on as clients,
Yes.
and we work together. And I think it's so huge, and especially in the Western sports world, and even in the barrel racing world, we think about, we have to have that confidence. We're, in a big arena, we're out there by ourselves. We necessarily don't have a coach. We have to be courageous. We have to make sure, our horse is ready. We have to make sure that we're mentally ready. We know our horse feels every move, absolutely everything. And then there's the component of being on the road. Maybe, we have competitors even here from Manitoba, so they drove 20 hours to get here. Hopefully everything went okay. You're paying your entry fees. You're away from home, and then you go out there and you hope you have the greatest run that you can. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. And then how do you deal with that? How are you able to mentally be able to bounce back and then compete again in your second round. So it is of great magnitude when it comes to the mental side. And I always ask the question in any sport, how much of it's mental? And even you as a barrel racer, and I mean, you are so well versed in this. A lot of barrel racers, they maybe say it's 60, 70, 80, even 90% mental, right? So we think, do we spend 60, 70, 80, or 90% of our time working on that mental skill set? The answer is usually no, but it's one of those parts of the game that I think is so important in so many ways, not only to get the best out of your the animal partner, but to also make sure that you're happy and healthy when you come into competition. So for me, it is a huge part of the game.
Absolutely, and I can attest to that. Let me tell you, when I was competing,
Sure.
It was always, I'd get in my head about anything, but then I'd kind of have to stop and remind myself, hey, we're just going to enjoy this
Yeah.
moment. I get to be doing what I love this
Yeah.
weekend. I'm going to yawn and kind of relax myself
Yeah.
and wiggle my toes, and we're just going to go and do our best and be happy that we're here. That's kind of what my mental game was like when I was competing. One year I got to run a friend's horse at some amateur rodeos, and it was a pretty dang good horse.
Yeah.
And so people would kind of get in my head a little bit, and it's interesting how that can happen, but that was, again, one of those things you had to focus on your mental game and just bring it back in. We're happy to be here. We're doing what we love. Don't worry about all that kind of crazy stuff. So if there's people here today maybe that are experiencing a little anxious, have a little anxiety around competing this weekend, do you have any tips maybe for them, Brett?
Well, I think anxiety is pretty interesting because it really comes from that idea of, that pre-performance anxiety is where the majority of it's going to sit. You're working down the alleyway as you kind of get excited and we get anxious, and that's really what it is. And there's kind of two different ways to look at that energy or that excitement. So when we have that energy and we start to get revved up in anticipation, does it become anxiety that kind of stymies you from being successful, or does it become excitement? And that is really, with our mindset and our mental skill set, which road are we able to put that on? When it becomes kind of anxiety is often associated with fear. So you're scared of what may happen. And that is a tough way if you want to be successful. So we really have to challenge ourselves. And the first thing that I always like to think about when I'm working with clients is making sure that we're curious. We have to have this time early on in that work where I always say, get rid of the judgment and let's just be curious and ask ourselves why. Why is my anxiety right now a 10 out of 10? What is it? Is it because I'm worried about the crowd? Is it because I'm worried about the pressure from mom or dad, or I'm riding somebody else's horse? So I think one of the most important things is the ability to be curious in those moments so that we can identify. It's often like anything, and I often relate it, working with people, how can we find out what it is and then externalize? Something's wrong with your truck, you take it to the shop, they plug it into the computer, they say, oh, it's your fuel system, or oh, it's this. And we know what to do. We change the part, we put it in. When it comes to the mental health and mental aspect, mental skills, sports psychology, whatever you want to call it, it's invisible. So we have to be intentional in committing to the process of finding out the why. Why am I really nervous right now? And I know that my nerves or my anxiety is standing in the way of me being successful. So I always think there needs to be a time where you just need to lean into the curiosity and get out of those judgment moments. It's like, oh, I had a bad run because I was so anxious, or I had a bad run because whatever it may be, the ground conditions weren't great. But if we back up a step, let's identify the why piece. Why am I feeling like that? And then we can start to kind of disassemble and figure out what's happening, and then let's reassemble the pieces, put it back together, let's try things on for size. So I think sometimes that first step is the most important. It sounds kind of easy and almost philosophical at times, but I think we have to be better detectives of identifying why is this set of feelings affecting me at this time? And if we can do that, we can start to work through things. So I think that's a really important piece. Sometimes that takes a little time, but if I was to give one tip to kind of break that anxious cycle, and it often kind of has this perpetual cycle. We get stuck in it, we continue to dig, and then we continue to worry. We lose access to our prefrontal cortex and the ability to regulate. So often, if we can find something, if what I call often like a confidence anchor or the bigger, better thing. So if we have a confidence anchor, that is something that reinstills the confidence in me. It could be an image, it could be a thought. For me personally, like when I know that my anxiety's kind of revving up and I'm feeling myself dysregulated and I can identify it, I've created this picture in my head, and it's just a picture of me and my family at the lake in Kelowna a couple of years ago. But I've attached these feelings to it and this confidence to it, and all it does, I see it, I just unconsciously, a smile goes on my face. and I'm regulated again. And I know that that's when I can perform my best. That's when I'm okay. I'm not in this moment of judgment or anything like that. I'm able to re-regulate. So for me, that's what I would call a confidence anchor. Kind of anxiety specialists will also call it a bigger, better thing. And what that is just something that we've attached a lot of value to that gets us out of this feedback loop of fear. Oh my goodness sakes, what happens if I don't? If I got to be so perfect on that first. But we know that that adds to that anxiety. So how can I kind of shift out of that? So trying to build that confidence anchor, investing into that. What does it look like? What does it feel like? I need to get back here. And then we know that's when we perform our best, when we're regulated and when every part of our brain is working.
Absolutely. I really want to touch base on that get curious comment.
Yeah.
And as much as we can get curious on our own about these kinds of things, I do think, too, it is important to be able to get curious with someone that can kind of help you out and make sense of things. So what are some resources that maybe you could suggest to people who are curious about getting curious about all the things they got going on?
That's a big question, too, and a good one, because I think there are a lot of resources out there. For me, when I think curious, I just think I'm willing to open up and to listen without judgment. Yes. And I think that's a huge piece. Even people that practice mindfulness, there's a huge component in there where we have to be free of judgment. And we say, judging others. No, we have to be free of judgment of ourselves. Because as soon as we judge ourselves, we lose our ability to learn. Because all I've done is I've given myself an answer. I did this because, period. Well, if I say, why did I do that? Or why did I feel that way? I get to keep that kind of curiosity lens on there, and I can start to dig a little more. And then I can start to look for answers. For me, I'm a big podcast YouTube guy. And I just kind of think, okay, and I go in there curious. I wonder if that would work. And I think, what can I try on for size? And will it work? It's like changing a saddle or changing a bit. What can I change? It just didn't work. We tried it. Let's try something new. So I think just the commitment to those resources is important. And I try and everything that I kind of listen to or try and watch has some theme of positivity to it. I think it is important that we also protect our focus, because what we focus on, well, that shapes our thoughts, and in turn, our thought shapes how we feel about others and ourselves. So where's my focus? Is it on all the bad stuff? Is it on all my bad runs? Or is that focus on things that are positive and good, so that my thoughts are positive and good and I feel that much better? So maybe a long-winded answer to just a resource question, but I really do think in saying that there's no one size fits all, but staying curious, looking for those resources that may work. And I guess that final judgment piece, we can learn something from everyone. And you said sometimes when we're in it, it's really hard to identify it, or we don't kind of see it when we're in the storm. So if somebody's saying something from the outside, if we're judgmental, it's like they don't know what they're talking about. I've won more than them, or I have an ounce bigger rodeos than them. What do they know? Well, why wouldn't I just be curious? Take it in. I mean, it may work, it may help, it may not. That's okay, but let's be in a place where we can take that, not personalize it, and can it make me better? If it can, that's great. You're better for it.
For people that maybe want to go in and actually have a sit-down conversation with someone, maybe they've never done that before. I have gone to therapy, and I am so grateful that I ever did. It had a horrible year last year, and going in and talking to someone really did help things for me. So maybe could you explain a little bit maybe what a sit-down kind of looks like what goes on if someone comes and talks with you?
Yeah, great question, and I'm proud of you for doing that. It's great, because I was in that same boat a couple of years ago, and I remember I tell this story 7-8 years ago. My wife said, geez, maybe you should go see somebody. And I was like, are you kidding me? Do you know who I am? I was this guy full of judgment and full of anxiety. And I just didn't know, but I also lacked a lot of happiness and a lot of understanding. So I remember reaching out and asking for some help and got some, and it made a world of difference for me. It propelled me into a complete career change. But in saying that, every kind of relationship is going to be unique to itself. So if you are looking for someone that could potentially help, the majority of my clients right now are kind of athletic-minded, because that's my style. I like that performance and athlete piece. I'm not afraid to talk about looking at 25,000 people in a grandstand and things like that. So we can have those conversations. But really, a good kind of client-professional relationship is driven by the client. What do you need, or how can we help you reach your goals? It shouldn't be, this big, scary thing, but just an opportunity for you to kind of work through it and to try and get better. And a lot of times I look at it, I say, I'm not a psychologist to many. I'm just kind of another coach in their world. Just another way to kind of look through, let's challenge some ideas, and let's work through this together.
That's wonderful. I love this, Brett. I believe we are back and ready to
Awesome.
go. So thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I do appreciate it, and I hope you guys picked up on a couple of tips or a couple ideas, and you're going to get curious about your own feelings and what's going on.